The platform was soaked in yellow light, flickering with the rhythm of tired announcements and the scuffed boots of strangers. People moved like waves, some running, others drifting, each pulling pieces of their lives in rolling suitcases and slung bags. She stood still. Not a step forward. Not a glance back. Her fingers curled tighter around the handle of the small, powder blue suitcase. It was chipped at one corner, barely noticeable unless you were looking too closely. She wasn't looking at it. She was looking ahead, through the glass. Past the ticket gates. Past the schedules and the vendors and the lies people told when saying goodbye. Her red scarf whipped once in the wind, then settled over her shoulder like a sigh. It was too warm for scarves now, but she wore it anyway. Not because of the cold. Because she needed to feel something wrap around her neck without choking her. The intercom crackled. Final boarding for line 7. Northbound. She didn't move. Across the platform, laughter. A girl about her age, maybe younger, was hugging a man in a navy coat. The man said something. The girl nodded too fast, eyes bright with the kind of joy that once came easy. Not anymore. Not for her. 3 years, she thought, swallowing. 3 years, and I still couldn't make them see me. Her gaze dropped to the cracked watch on her wrist. 8:42 p.m. stopped. Had been stuck there for months. She could have replaced it. But she didn't. There was something about watching time freeze that felt fair. A gust of wind swept the hem of her coat around her legs. Her hands shook, but only slightly. She hid them behind her back, pressing her nails into her palms until the sting brought her back to the platform. To the decision. The voices echoed in her head louder than the announcements. It's not personal. You know how these things go. She's family. It just made sense. You'll understand someday. She almost laughed. Understand what, exactly? That talent meant nothing when blood was involved? That loyalty was a currency they spent only when it suited them? That they took the best years of her youth, squeezed her dry, and handed the spotlight to someone who hadn't even bled for it? A child's balloon floated up into the rafters above the track. She followed its rise with her eyes. Watched it shrink until it was just a dot, then vanish entirely. The sound of the train grew louder, gears screaming, brakes howling. It entered the station like a storm. People around her stirred, stepped forward, straightened jackets, pulled tighter to their loved ones. She didn't move. Not yet. The suitcase bumped against her ankle as if nudging her, asking if she was ready. She wasn't. But she'd go anyway. Her voice, unused for hours, finally whispered beneath her breath, like a secret only she was allowed to hear, "They'll remember me now." The red scarf lifted again, higher this time, caught in the tunnel wind like a flame daring to burn. She took one step toward the train. Then another. Behind her, the echo of her silence had already begun unraveling everything she left behind. The train door slid open with a mechanical sigh. Warm air spilled out, smelling faintly of metal, old coffee, and something sweet, like someone had smuggled pastries in their carry-on. She didn't step in. Not yet. Her fingers twitched at her side, brushing the frayed edge of the red scarf. It was unraveling at the corner, a loop of thread dancing in the breeze. She'd nearly thrown it away last winter, but something stopped her. Maybe because it reminded her of her father, the way he used to tie it clumsily around her neck before walking her to school. "You lead with your heart, kiddo. That's rare. Don't let M twist it out of you." She'd believed him. Back then. Her suitcase bumped again against her calf. The same one she'd used 3 years ago when she first arrived in the city, naive, breathless, lit up by ambition. It had been her mother's before that. The corners still bore little scratches from old bus rides and rainy pavement. She used to pretend those marks were maps to something. Now, they just looked like bruises. The platform was starting to clear. People stepped onto the train in twos and threes, holding hands, exchanging plans, cradling their excitement like something fragile. She watched one couple kiss quickly, awkward but real. A boy carried his sister's bag, his thumb tracing the handle like it might fall apart. The small, intimate things you notice when you're standing still. She wasn't sure why she hadn't moved. Maybe because the act of stepping in would make everything real. The quitting. The vanishing. The giving up, or maybe the burning down. From the corner of her eye, she caught a stranger watching her. He was seated on the bench across from the vending machines. Not staring. Just present. Like he'd noticed she hadn't moved, and was waiting to see if she ever would. He held a paperback in one hand, though he hadn't turned the page in a while. She turned away. A rush of guilt caught in her chest. Not for quitting, no. That had calcified into something colder weeks ago. But for caring so long. For sacrificing sleep and rent and friendships just to be told she was like family, but not family enough. For remembering every single person's birthday on set while forgetting her own. For smiling when her bank account read $12.41 and she still said yes to overtime. "You're doing this for the long game," she used to whisper to herself at 3 a.m., under flickering fluorescent lights. "They'll see you." They had seen her. And still, they'd handed her part, the one she bled for, to his niece. A girl who couldn't even pronounce the character's name right in rehearsal. Another gust swept through. Her scarf fluttered across her cheek like a goodbye. She blinked hard. Behind her, the stranger stood. Not walking toward her. Just shifting. Like he was preparing to leave too, but wasn't sure if now was the right time. She finally stepped toward the train, dragging the suitcase behind her. Wheels clacked softly over the platform's ridges. Just before the door, she paused. The scarf slipped again, this time caught on the handle. She reached back, fingers grazing it, but didn't pull it free right away. Instead, she looked up. Inside the train, passengers already seated, some leaning against windows, others laughing at things she'd never hear. Outside, her breath fogging in the air. Her heartbeat in her ears. She turned her head, just slightly, and met the stranger's eyes. He didn't smile. Didn't speak. But something in the tilt of his gaze made her chest tighten. "Are you running? Or returning?" it asked. She didn't know. Not yet. The scarf slipped from the suitcase and landed softly at her feet. She stared down at it, then at the open door. One foot hovered. And she hesitated. The train doors remained open a moment too long. Long enough for silence to become a question. Rain began to whisper on the metal awning above, soft at first, like the station itself was thinking. Then heavier, deliberate. A single drop kissed her cheek, cold and sharp. She didn't brush it away. The red scarf lay at her feet, soaked now at the edges. The train's low hum pulsed behind her, a reminder of motion. Of escape. She should step in. Instead, she bent slowly, fingers curling around the damp fabric. As she stood, she glanced back once more. The stranger was still there, book in hand, though now resting on his knee. His shoes were worn down at the edges, creased leather, soles patched with something that looked like electrical tape. Not careless, just lived in. There was a stillness to him, like someone who'd learned the hard way not to rush anything anymore. A gust of wind pushed his coat slightly open. That's when she saw it, a photo, just peeking out from his wallet, barely visible, the edge of a smile and the blurred face of a child, maybe a daughter. Or someone gone. She blinked, heart tightening in that cruel, sudden way it did when your pain recognizes someone else's. An invisible mirror. She looked away. The train hissed. Doors still open. Still waiting. Behind her, thunder rumbled far off, soft, then low and long like something warning her. Not loud enough to scare. Just enough to say be sure. Her suitcase handle was slick in her grip. She realized her hand was shaking again. She wasn't sure what unnerved her more, that the man hadn't spoken, or that she found comfort in his silence. He wasn't pulling her in with words or offering some grand revelation. He was just there. Watching. Not saving her. Not stopping her. Just seeing her. And it had been so long since someone had actually seen her. Her thoughts spiraled. Why does it matter? He's a stranger. Get on the train. Walk away. You already gave them enough of yourself. You own no one this moment. And yet. Something about the photograph. Something about the way he hadn't turned the page. The patience of it. She remembered a night 2 years ago, wrapped in that same scarf, sleeping in the studio between takes, curled against a wall with her phone clutched like a lifeline. Her director had stepped over her like she was a coat someone forgot. No one had noticed. Except the janitor who left a granola bar near her bag and didn't say a word. The way kindness sometimes looks like nothing. Maybe this was like that. Another drop of rain ran along her jaw. She let it fall. The stranger stood now, closing his book slowly. He made no move toward her, just lifted the hood of his coat and turned toward the far exit. Like he'd been waiting for her to decide, but wouldn't wait forever. She felt it in her chest, panic rising, uncertain and sudden. Was this a test? A crossing of lives meant for something? Or just the cruel trick of loneliness dressing up coincidence as destiny? Her foot shifted, toes touching the edge of the train. She could still make it. But her eyes stayed on the stranger. On the wallet now tucked away. On the stillness he carried like an old story no one had asked to hear. Another gust of wind. Louder thunder. And then, the train doors chimed. She didn't move. The train doors finally closed. Not with a bang, but with a hush, like the city exhaled something it had been holding too long. She hadn't gotten on. She stood there, soaked now, scarf balled in one fist, the suitcase leaning on one wheel as if it, too, had grown tired of being pulled along. Her breath came shallow. Unsteady. The kind that catches in your throat and threatens to tumble out as something louder. People were watching. Not many. Just enough to make her feel like a mistake under a spotlight. An older woman muttered as she passed, tugging her coat tighter, "If you don't know where you're going, don't block the rest of us." A man in a business suit shook his head once, like disappointment was contagious. She swallowed hard. Didn't look up. Didn't reply. Her feet started to move. Somewhere between walking and falling. She turned toward the far end of the platform, where the stranger had disappeared moments before. Her limbs felt weightless, like they belonged to someone else. A crack of thunder echoed again, closer this time. The sky now a bruised violet. Rain clung to her lashes, mixing with something warmer she refused to wipe away. Her boots splashed through a puddle, one after the other. And then, she stopped. He was there. By the far column. Just standing. As if he had never truly left. His hood was down now, rain flattening his hair against his forehead. His expression unreadable, but his posture, different. Waiting, maybe. Or wondering if she'd gotten on the train after all. And in his hand, she saw it. Her scarf. Not tightly held. Just draped over his fingers like a question. The same scarf her father gave her before she left home. The one she nearly let go, again and again, but always pulled back. A thread she kept grabbing in the dark when she needed something to believe in. Now it looked different. Softer somehow. Smaller. As if it, too, had grown tired of holding itself together. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Some people carry more than just bags. They carry silence. The long, aching kind. The kind that screams louder than any goodbye. He stepped forward. Just once. Held out the scarf. No smile. No pressure. Just offering. And somehow that undid her more than any apology ever could. Her hand trembled as she reached for it, but just before her fingers touched the fabric, a young couple brushed past them, too fast, laughing too loudly. The girl's voice cut the air. Some girls will do anything for attention. The words landed like a slap. Not just the sound. The certainty. She froze. The scarf still hung between them. The stranger didn't flinch. Didn't defend. He just looked at her. Not through her. At her. As if he'd heard those words before, too. As if he knew they weren't new. Weren't rare. Just sharp enough to draw old blood. Her fingers hovered above the scarf. Inches away. Her lips parted. "Do you think," she whispered, barely a voice, more a breath, "that we become what they call us if we don't fight it?" He didn't answer. Didn't have to. The scarf fluttered in his hand like it remembered being around her neck. Thunder cracked again, loud enough to rattle the glass behind them. The city blurred in the rain. She almost reached out again. Almost. But instead, her hand dropped to her side. Empty. She stepped back. 1 foot. Then 2. He didn't move. He just watched her the way the sky watches a bird unsure of its wings. The scarf? Still in his hand. Her heart? Loud. Messy. Breaking. And somewhere between leaving and staying, she whispered to herself, "If I walk now, does that count as losing?" No one answered. Not even the rain. The next morning came gray and slow, as if the sky itself wasn't ready to move on. She hadn't slept, just drifted in and out on the stiff cushions of a late-night diner booth. Her suitcase at her feet. Scarf balled in her lap. Coffee untouched. She'd walked for hours after the station. Through rain-slick streets and blinking traffic lights, past windows glowing with lives that didn't feel borrowed. Every step echoing her own question back at her, "If I walk now, does that count as losing?" But now, under buzzing fluorescence and the stale smell of burnt toast, she wasn't thinking about loss. She was thinking about the scarf. And the man who'd held it like something sacred. Something remembered. She hadn't taken it back. But he'd let her walk away anyway. She ran her fingers along the fabric, now dry but wrinkled. Something stiff inside caught her attention. A folded slip of paper, tucked just under the lining. Frowning, she pulled it free. It was a receipt, crumpled and faded, from a bookstore she didn't recognize. Dated 7 years ago. On the back, a name scribbled in looping, feminine cursive, for Lila. "In case you forget how loved you were." Her breath caught. She stared at the name for a long time, her thumb brushing over the ink like it could bring the voice back. Lila. The same name as the character in the role they stole from her. The role she had lived, swallowed, breathed into every audition. Coincidence? She didn't believe in those anymore. Something deep and cold settled in her stomach. She stood abruptly, the receipt clutched in her hand, scarf falling to the floor. She didn't pick it up. The office building was glossy and cruel, glass walls, polished metal, all the things people build to feel important. She didn't belong here, not with her sleep-mussed hair and yesterday's mascara smudged beneath her eyes. But she stepped in anyway. bold with exhaustion, brave with rage. At the front desk, she handed the security guard the card she'd found tucked into her scarf's pocket, not just the receipt, but a name. Nathaniel A. Kerr. The man with the book. The man with the silence. The man who, 2 weeks ago, had signed the rejection letter from the very company she'd bled to get into. His office was on the 27th floor. The elevator ride felt like drowning in velvet. When the doors opened, she stepped out into a hallway lined with black and white photos. Studio sets. Actors mid-scene. One caught her eye, a young girl with a red scarf and a smile so full it made your chest ache. A small plaque beneath it read, Lila Kerr, 2007 to 2019, she didn't need to do the math. Her heart had already done it. She turned sharply, too sharply, and collided with someone rounding the corner. It was him. Nathaniel. The stranger. Same coat. Same silence. But this time, his eyes widened just slightly when he saw her. Neither of them spoke. Not for a long beat. Then, she lifted the receipt between them. It trembled in her hand. Was she why you watched me? His jaw worked. Something in his expression broke open, but didn't spill. He didn't deny it. He didn't need to. She shook her head. Not in anger. In ache. The scarf, his daughter's. The role, her daughter's name. The rejection, his decision. And still, he'd watched her stand at the edge of a platform with a suitcase full of sacrifice, and said nothing. You lead with your heart, kiddo. That's rare. Don't let M twist it out of you. Her father's voice, looping again. But now it sounded different. Less like comfort, more like a dare. She looked at Nathaniel one last time. He opened his mouth, but she stepped past him, toward the studio doors at the end of the hall. Someone inside was calling names. Casting. Maybe replacing. She didn't knock. She walked in. Eyes tired. Heart cracked. But this time, she wasn't asking to be seen. She was taking up space. The door closed behind her. And everything changed. The room was colder than she expected, silent but charged, like a stage just before the curtain lifts. Inside, white lights, one long table, 3 casting directors flipping through headshots. No smiles. No small talk. They barely looked up when she entered. She didn't wait to be asked. I'm not on the list, she said, her voice low but steady. But I'm not here to ask. I'm here to finish what I started. They paused. One raised an eyebrow. But none stopped her. She stepped forward, placed her suitcase at her feet, and carefully unwrapped the red scarf from around her wrist. It was dry now. Folded neatly. Reverently. This, she held it up, eyes meeting each of theirs, was Lila's. A beat of silence. The woman in the center looked stunned, recognition flashing in her eyes. The man beside her glanced toward the door, as if waiting for Nathaniel to storm in. But he didn't. So she kept going. You gave the role away, she said. You didn't even call me. You didn't ask. But I'm here anyway. Because I was Lila. I am Lila. Not because it's her name, but because I've lived in her skin for 3 years. I broke for her. I bled for her. And I won't let you bury her in a version that feels hollow. Her chest rose, fell. The room stayed quiet. Then slowly, she stepped to the edge of the casting floor, laid the scarf gently on the ground, and stood tall. This isn't for me, she whispered. It's for her. She began the monologue. Not performed. Bared. It wasn't perfect. Her voice cracked in places. Her hands shook. But every word landed with weight. Raw. Earned. When it ended, no one clapped. But no one moved either. Outside, the sky had cracked open, light filtering through the morning clouds like breath after a storm. Nathaniel stood waiting, back against the far wall. Hands in pockets. Face unreadable. She walked past him, almost. Then stopped. "You gave me her scarf," she said, not turning. "Why?" A long silence. Then his voice, low. "Because I saw you carry silence the same way she did. Like a second skin. Like it was the only language anyone ever taught you." She turned then. "You chose me today?" He didn't flinch. "I chose Lila," he said. "But you gave her back to me in a way no one else could." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "And now?" she asked. "What do I do now?" He looked at her. This time, no walls. Just grief. And gratitude. "You walk forward," he said. "But not to be seen. To see. Yourself." Her breath caught. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out the red scarf, now folded into a perfect square, and handed it to him. "This doesn't belong to me anymore," she said. "She's not mine to carry." He took it with both hands. And in that moment, she felt the shift. Not a victory. Not a defeat. Something quieter. A letting go. Months later, a new platform. A different train. She stood now at the edge, not frozen. Not afraid. No suitcase. Just a script in one hand, headphones in the other. Behind her, a girl no older than she'd been when this began stumbled past, dropping a crumpled casting notice. She bent, picked it up, and handed it back with a soft smile. The girl blushed, whispered, "Thank you," and rushed off. As the train pulled in, she caught her reflection in the window. Still her face. But new eyes. Eyes that had stopped waiting to be chosen. She stepped on. Not because she had to. But because she was ready. And somewhere, far behind in the past, 8:42 on the cracked watch ticked forward, just once. And didn't stop. 5.